Hey guys, I'm Kenny and welcome to a cold and wet Bonnie, Scotland. Today's video we're looking at everyday supercars. So we're putting the McLaren 570S against their 2017 Nissan GTR. So let's find out what one is the best. So you might ask why are we putting together an £82,000 car versus a £143,000 car? Well, there's two answers. One, the 570S and the 2017 GTR are the two cars that we've added into our fleet this year, and both of them, the manufacturers say, are everyday supercars. So let's have a little look at McLaren then. So, unless you lived on the moon in the 90s, you're going to know about the F1, which was an absolute fantastic machine. I think there was only 129 of these cars built, so they were super rare, and the performance figures back in the 90s was absolutely eye-watering. And then McLaren started production of cars again in 2011, so we've seen things like the MP4-12C and things like that. And when they started came about with these cars, I mean, yeah, they were fast, they were really fast, but you know, they weren't really that special looking. And I think since they've replaced the 12C with the 650S, they've started to up their game now. I personally think that the 650S is a fantastic looking machine, and again, it is ridiculously fast. And then we've seen other special McLarens come along, like the 675 LT, which, I mean, that's a bit sort of like supercar porn. And then McLaren's come along with the 570S, which is what we're driving today. The thing with the 570S, McLaren don't actually call it a supercar. They've branded this one a sports car, which always leaves you asking. You wonder why they've called it a sports car, because 0 to 60 is 3.2. 0 to 100 is 6.5. That is exactly the same as the F1, McLaren F1 done in the 90s. And then on to a top speed of 204. So you think, well, what's no supercar about that? But the design brief through this was everyday usability. And, you know, for a sort of relative novice like myself, you can jump in this car and you can just start pushing the hell out of it, and it's not scary. So with the whole lineup now of McLarens that all share the same engine, it's all the 3.8 V8 twin turbo. And I tell you what, the engine is absolutely epic. This engine's been obviously detuned from your 675 and 650S, and obviously the P1 as well. This one's obviously putting out 562 horsepower, so like I say, it's got a manageable amount of power. McLaren never focused heavily on the downforce of the car, so the grip is not endless. But then again, that's why it falls into the sports car bracket, because McLaren wanted the car to be fun on the road, and that's what the car was designed for. So going on to the handling, the chassis of the car, I mean, we've had this 570 now for a year, and it's just, you actually have to drive this car to understand, but I mean, it handles amazing. No matter how fast you sort of go, or what road surface you're on, or if it's wet or if it's leaves, the grip from the rear end is phenomenal. And I don't know if I've even had understeer in this car yet. One thing we noticed earlier, when we're accelerating, I mean, today the roads are kind of, well, it's obviously autumn time now, so there's leaves on the road was wet, and you know, when you're absolutely pinning the car, one thing that I noticed, even, you know, going through corners or whatever, how, you know, the car always just wants to be pointing the way that you want. You know, when the rear end steps out, it's only slight, you know, and when it's braking traction under heavy acceleration in the wet, it's just like, no, I'm going straight forward, you know, and that's kind of what you want in a car, especially if you're, like I say, you're not a trained F1 driver. So overall then, one thing we've worked out today, again, driving this McLaren 570, McLaren's absolutely nailed it with this. I mean, whatever you want to call it, sports car, supercar, whatever. I mean, as an everyday package, it's just absolutely phenomenal. You couldn't ask for better handling, you couldn't ask for better performance, and onto the everyday usability, it's absolutely fantastic. Steering's light, it's a comfortable car to drive, the cabin's not a noisy place to be, and it's a really easy car to live with. Plus you've got fantastic luggage space as well. So like we say, everyday supercar, there's not really that much more you would ask for in a car like this. So 2017 Nissan GTR time. Well, obviously, first of all, I think we should look at the GTR is £60,000 cheaper than the 570S. So value for money with the GTR is absolutely phenomenal, and I think everybody knows that now with the Nissan GTR, that you're basically getting bang for your buck. I mean, 0 to 60 is even quicker than the 570S. It's coming in a claimed 2.8 seconds. Top speed a little bit shorter on the 570S of 196 you're getting in this. Power wise, the two cars are about the same. I mean, you've got 562 horsepower in this and 562 horsepower in the 570. Practicality, I mean, obviously, this being a GT car, it's obviously going to be a little bit better in practicality. I mean, you've got a big boot at the back, you've even got two really small seats, so you can do the sort of run to school and pick up the kids, and you're going to fit a lot more luggage in the GTR as well. Driving wise, I mean, you could sort of, the two of them are designed to be everyday usable supercars, and that's what they both do really well. The GTR, I would say, helps out. I mean, it's got a phenomenal four-wheel drive system, so any driver can jump into a GTR, no matter how good you are, and drive this thing like a bat out of hell. So a bit of history on the GTR. Nissan had always designed and built these things to go racing or against things like Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and they always done a fantastic job. And that's why some people don't quite like them, because you can go and buy a car that's a fraction of the price of your Ferrari or Lamborghini, and you've got every bit as much performance and sometimes even more. One thing I would say about the GTR is what it could probably benefit from, especially if you're doing sort of track days, is a carbon ceramic option. Especially if your brakes are getting sort of heavy use at track days, sometimes you can end up getting a bit of brake fade with the GTR. Chassis, I mean, the chassis of the GTR is fantastic. I mean, bearing in mind you've got a car that weighs like 1,800 kilograms, so it's not exactly been on a diet. It's a heavy car, and they must have some fantastic chassis tuning, etc. going on there, because you would never believe, putting this thing through corners, that it actually weighs what it does. So overall then, the GTR is a fantastic performance machine, and as an everyday car, I mean, for one, in Scotland we have pretty bad winters sometimes, so having four-wheel drive is that's a fantastic thing to have. Plus having two seats in the back, again, you can do the school runs, and having a big boot, you can also do some nice Christmas shopping. So there you have it, guys. We spent all day driving these two cars, and what have we learned? Well, if you're looking for a supercar for the weekend, then the McLaren is going to be the car you'll take. It's a special car, it's a McLaren, the performance is fantastic, and it just looks absolutely brilliant. If you're needing more from your supercar, then you're probably going to go with the GTR. It's got 4 seats, it's got a big boot, and it's also got four-wheel drive, which in Scotland, it makes sense quite a lot of the time. If it was me personally going to buy a car, I'd probably go for the GTR, and I'd spend the £60,000 change on probably something like a 355 or a 360 for the weekend. So there you have it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video. If you want to know any more about our driving experiences with these cars, then click on the link below. And remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel, because next week we've got a fantastic video. We're putting 2 Lamborghinis head to head. It's going to be our Superleggera and our Hurricane. Who's going to win? Let's find out.